Hi there, welcome to the Lightforge, a new podcast focused on Arena in Hearthstone. Have you ever wondered, why do people only talk about rank play? You watch a video, and in 30 minutes of the video, 28 minutes is about rank this, rank that, how to make a deck, what the meta is, what we're going to do. And then in the end, they say something like, oh yeah, and the arena's fun too. Or you see a card review for the Grand Tournament's what's coming out in probably like a week or so. So you do a card review for the Grand Tournament, and you talk about it fits into this deck, it fits into that deck. Oh, maybe we could change the Patron Warrior deck by adding this card, or maybe the Druid token deck will come back. And then in the end they say something like, and in Arena this is also a pretty good card. Well, we have had enough with this marginalization of the Arena game. We have always been Arena players, and we've been very obsessed with this game since the very beginning. So at this point we have decided to take a step towards changing this culture of marginalization with this new podcast, The Lightforge, which is about the Arena, and just the Arena, and not about ranked, and not about brawl, and not about other things related to formats where you put together a deck. Unless Blizzard is going to offer you 3 choices for each of those cards before you make that deck. So I am one of your co-hosts, Adwukta, ADWCTA, and the Lightforge's other co-host is my partner in crime here, Merps. Introduce yourself.
How's it going, guys? This is Merps, and if you're wondering a little bit about who are these two guys, well, we are the two people.
They know.
They know? Okay, well, maybe they know because you and me, we have the most consulted Arena tier list in Hearthstone. And if you just happen to use a little program called Hearth Arena, you might see both of our smiling and sometimes
Not
odd
smiling.
faces on there.
Very much not smiling. At least those are the only ones
smiling.
I remember. I don't remember the smiling ones.
And collectively, we stream. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter. And I like to think we do fairly well while streaming. We average 7.5 wins. And we try hard on Arena, and we love playing it. And we hope to bring you guys some entertaining and informational content in this new podcast.
Yeah, if you guys want to look up who we are, it's the ADWCT name is what we're going on right now. What we're going off of right now. And if you just type ADWCTA into Google, all this stuff will pop up, because that's really all we do is Hearthstone, and it's Hearthstone Arena. So we figure we'd be kind of the perfect people to carry the torch of the Arena experience into the podcasting space.
You make it sound so sad. All we do is Hearthstone.
That's the wrong attitude. That's what someone who plays ranked would think.
Ooh, that's a low blow.
No, we've been doing this for a long time, and we've had a lot of fun with it. So this is a way for us to kind of find a space to talk about all the issues that are happening in the Arena and the meta and new cards. People have been requesting that we answer questions since we started streaming, and we started a YouTube series, and we started writing articles and all of that, and we just never had one place to put all of that. So this is what this podcast will hopefully be. And with that, I'm going to introduce our first segment. We're going to do segments. We're just testing stuff out right now. Things will happen this week that will not happen afterwards. Things may happen next week that we'll never pick up again. Maybe a month from now, this whole thing will look very different. But we're experimenting here, so stay with us. And for now, we think segments may be a good idea. And the first segment that we have in store for you is Deep Fried Meta, where we deep fried the... We didn't really think the title through very well.
Lots of thought went into this. Yes.
The thought was just to reject different ways of dealing with the meta. And in the end, I think we thought Deep Fried Meta was okay.
I think Adwukta was just hungry while he was thinking of it.
I'm always
But
hungry.
let's get into it. Let's dig right into it.
Let's deep fry the meta.
The topic this week that I want to talk about are Paladins and Mages, otherwise known as every single freaking opponent in the Arena. Let's analyze this.
You win one, and then the rate of Paladins go up by 50%. You win another one, your chances of seeing a Mage or Paladin go up again.
Yeah. Your very first game, you might see that fleeting glimpse of a warrior.
Nope,
then
the warriors
never
don't exist.
again.
Nope. Maybe a priest, maybe a hunter, never a warrior.
But let's talk about why people pick these two classes so often. Well, first of all, they're very strong. If they were not strong classes, people wouldn't pick them. But let's really analyze what makes these two classes very strong. With the Mage, it all goes down to the hero power. That 1 damage ping really allows the mage to play a very slow control style. And that ping is a lot different from the other pings for other classes. Druids and rogues, even though they have pings, they can't drag the game on as long, mostly because they take face damage with their ping. Druids are a little bit different because they have some big beefy taunts and a couple of ways to heal, but with the mage you could really just slow the game down, rely on your flame strikes, rely on your AoEs.
Okay,
And
but the paladin doesn't have a ping, like sort
No.
of, right? But like not really, right? You get like a 1/1 on the board with 2 mana. It could ping the next turn, I guess, if it's not removed.
Yeah, the paladin is really about board presence and punishing you by being able to keep anything on the board, which is so annoying. Muster for battle, Argent Protector, those things help you get on the board, stay on the board, and once you're on the board, the onslaught of True Silvers, Blessing of Kings, followed by other Argent Protectors, extremely annoying.
Followed by Argent,
Extremely
other protectors.
annoying.
Always followed by other Argent Protectors.
That's why you can't leave anything on the board.
So annoying.
They
No,
can
it's true
punish
though.
you
Every
by
time they use one
anything.
Argent Protector, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna play around another Argent Protector. You can't keep playing around Argent Protectors, right? And then they
Yes.
always have more, and then all my stuff dies, and then I lose to a paladin. But but I mean, I think the interesting point here is, so you talked about the paladin. You get on the board, you stay on the board. You have a lot of tools for that. The mage, the ping is really special, but that's not. These aren't the only classes that do that, right? Like you just said, like a druid and a rogue also ping. Sure, the druid is not like the best ping, but the rogue has like a double ping in the early game at least, and then less so in the late game. But because you start taking so much face damage. But the paladin gets on the board. There's other good ways to get on the board, right? You could like veil in something. You can just put out a lot of 1-drops as the warlock. So what makes mage and paladin special? What's making them what I think most people these days consider, or if you just play the arena, you'll know. You see these two classes way more than anyone else. I mean, way more than any other classes. Jaina and Uther. Jaina's the mage, Uther's the paladin. I get annoyed by them when I see them now. Not because I don't like them. I like these classes. I just would like a little different experience. So why? Why is the paladin and mage special when there are similar classes that do similar things?
Sure. Let's talk about Mage first. Mage has some of the most efficient removals and best removals. Fireball, Polymorph, Flame Cannon, Frostbolt, fantastic removals. They have some of the best removals, and because they have so many, you have a higher frequency of drafting them. And we always get to Flame Strike, which has just become just the beast, like the boogeyman in Arena, right?
It really has.
Flame
I
Strike.
think it's taken like a life of its own. You go to so if you guys want to see this is really hilarious. Go on. I don't know how many of our listeners do this or have ever done this, but Blizzard has these forums where people can talk. It's not Reddit. Reddit is way better. If you guys are listening to this and you don't know about the Reddit Hearthstone subreddit, go there. That's like the #1 source of all things Hearthstone, and even the developers chime in there whenever something comes up. But Blizzard has their own official forums also, and they have a subcategory. One is called the Arena. And in there, people, presumably people who either don't like Reddit for whatever reason, or like maybe Reddit is blocked in their work and Blizzard isn't, they go there and they talk about the arena. And it is just so much QQing about Flamestrike. Every third post is like, screw Flamestrike. Why is this a common card? Why is this even in the game? Arena is so not fun. All I see are mages, true. And all I die to are Flamestrikes. Well, that's kind of your fault. But it's become a boogeyman, and what people people who are good at this game probably realize this, and other people probably know it as well intellectually, but they don't feel it, is that Flamestrike is getting rarer and rarer. Right? Every time you introduce new cards, your chances of being offered a Flamestrike is lower, and so presumably you take a Flamestrike whenever it's offered. You're just going to see it less and less often, and as time goes on, you're going to see it less, even more less often, I guess. So it has become the boogeyman in the arena. But I think that's that's giving it the perception that's more than the actual fear of the Flamestrike. There are ways to play around the Flamestrike, right? Like you
Definitely.
Like you can put out, if you have like stuff that's all going to get Flamestriked away, you put down a big thing. So they play Flamestrike and you hit their face with the big thing. Maybe you put down a bunch of like piloted shredders, or stuff that's sticky on the board. There's ways to play around Flamestrike, and they don't hurt you that much. But it's the boogeyman in the arena. It's been blown a little out of proportion, although it is a powerful card.
Now that we've talked about Mage, I'm going to address the second part of your question. Let's talk about why Paladin is so strong. We talked about it a little bit beforehand. The two things I would say are value and flexibility. Paladins have such value in the early and mid game in Shielded Minibot, Muster for Battle, Argent Protector, these cards. Flexibility, True Silver Champion, Blessing of Kings, they can attack you from different angles. Consecration, I forgot to mention that. So they have a good AoE, they have a weapon, and they have ways to ring and punish you just by having anything on the board. And these are all great value cards. And you can see on the tier list that we have, Paladin has so many cards above 100 tier list score, which is just insane. It shouldn't have that.
A lot of them are rares, but it's one of those things where this new TGT card came out, right, which makes everybody a Paladin. Like, draw a Paladin card, and it's going to be a good card in the arena. It's like a 6 mana 5/5 that draws you a card, but it's a random Paladin card. And the first question everyone asks is, wait, is this better than like just drawing a card from my deck? Well, the average deck is a tier score, like the average card in the average deck is a tier score of 64. The average Paladin card, because there's no like distinction between rarity and commons and all of that, and Paladins have such good rare cards, right? Like you have Muster for Battle, Argent, no, not Argent, Follow the Rules. I don't even remember what that thing's called. Just Follow the Rules in my head. Outdoor Peacekeeper. There you go.
Way to establish credibility on this first podcast.
Hearthstone is not about reading. It is about some other thing that I'm presumably good at. Presumably. But yeah, it has so many of those cards that it's actually not that far apart. I actually went back and looked because when I do this TGT card review video series. It's gotten a little buzz on my YouTube, and it does it all from an arena perspective. And when the card first came out, I said, hey, it's a good card, but you're going to draw something that's worse than what's in your deck because your deck is going to have an average of 64. Well, as it turns out, some guy actually like looked up and added all the numbers together for Paladin cards, and the random Paladin card right now, and we don't know what it is when TGT comes out because it's going to we're going to add more cards to the pool, but right now it's something like a 62 apparently, which is not that far off from 64. I thought it was going to be somewhere in like the upper 50s, like maybe 60 at best, but that's how powerful Paladin cards are.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think with those cards, you also have to take into consideration how many high impact cards there are. Because if you're just expecting to get any random card, that's also fine. But a lot of Paladin cards are extremely high impact.
Like, what do you mean by high impact?
So if you're looking at just the average cards period, it's not like Unstable Portal where you can just draw kind of a Razor Fen Hunter or this, that. You might have a lot of cards that are dragging it down, but you might also just have quite a few cards that are bringing it up significantly. Yeah. And whenever you do that, whenever you get something extra, unlike the Unstable Portal, in which the only effect is to grab that card. Yep. For this, because the card is an extra, you don't mind it so much if it's not that great. And if it's a Blessed Champion, what happens? You paid 6 mana for a 5/5? That's fine. That's a Frost Elemental without the effect. But if you get something like an Outdoor Peacekeeper off of that, that's huge. And I think that tilts it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And because, like, normally when you're playing in the arena, you play around stuff, right? Like, if you're playing against a Paladin, you play around True Silver, you play around Consecration, maybe. If you're against a Mage, you play around your Flame Strike, obviously, and then maybe some other cards. Well, if they just drew one Paladin card, are you really going to play around all the Paladin cards just because they drew a Paladin card? By the way, this card, I realize we didn't mention it because we don't read. We've established that we don't read what the cards are. This card is called the Grand Crusader. It is a TGT card. TGT, if for those of you who don't know, is the shortened version, like the acronym for the Grand Tournament, which is the Blizzard expansion that's coming out in a week or so, probably. And it is an epic card, so you're not going to see it all that often. But we're just using it as an example for how good Paladin cards are. So one thing I do want to talk about with all this Mage and Paladin thing is I do think that, much like Flamestrike, you see all these Mages and Paladins because there's become this. So at first, let me go way back. Game launches. Ooh. It is March. It is 2014. The game launches, and we all look around, and we go to the arena, and what do we see? We see Jaina, the Mage, everywhere. We see flame strikes everywhere. We realize how powerful it is. We all use flame strikes. We all use fireballs. We all kill all of our opponents using the mage. The mage was by far not even close to the most to being second, the highest used class in the arena. And when you get closer and closer to 12 wins, you get more and more mages. And that was always the case. The Paladin has always been a good class. Like maybe number 2, maybe number 3, maybe number 4, depending on who you ask. But then GVG came out, and all of a sudden, Paladins just came in, and there were like, what were the actual good common cards that GVG brought in? It was just Shielded Minibot.
Shielded Minibot.
Yeah,
that was enough.
It made such a huge difference.
It's such a dominant 2-drop. And the problem with Paladins before GVG was the fact that you had all of these great cards on turn 4, but they were cluttered. And these cards, especially Blessing of Kings, couldn't be used unless you grab the board. And Paladin needed to grab the board. And how could you grab the board?
Even Argent Protector, which is a 2-mana card, right? You need to have the coin and coin something out to use it. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and how could you grab the board without good early game class cards? If you're a Paladin facing a Rogue, how are you going to beat that backstab on your turn 2? You can't. So by giving Paladin a good way to grab the board early, it just allows their gluttony of turn 4 cards to really shine through.
Yeah, and remember, we keep wanting to like remove all the stuff the Paladin puts out, right? Like if that Divine Shield gets Blessing of Kings, game over, right? If you have something on the board, you can Archer Protect it again. Like we were going to, so you have to remove it, but you can't remove it. Anyway, creates a huge conundrum, and the fact that GVG brought out a lot of little cards that people like to play, like 1-drops and whatever, also worked in a 2/2's favor, so that 2/2 stays relevant for a longer period of time. And now Paladins all of a sudden became as popular as Mage, and not just, well, almost as popular as Mage. Mage still had the advantage of being there first. But the win rates, Hearth Arena collects win rates data from like anyone who uses us and gives us the information, so we have all this like random information, and the win rates for Paladin among most players, it like went up to be really close to Mage all throughout GVG until BRM came along, and then it's kind of dropped down a little since. But one of the important things that you see when you look at these stats is among infinite players, among players who like win more than like 6.5 wins per run on average in our system, they still do much better with Mage than with Paladin. Because the Shielded Minibot is kind of a brainless card to play. Oh, it's turn 2, I play Shielded Minibot if I have it in my hand. If I don't, I don't play it. Like, you can't mess up with Shielded Minibot. It doesn't matter, like, you can see that it's good, and then you will play it. And it will do the great things that it does. And it helps you establish the board. And also, it's much easier to play with the board than without the board. There's a lot more difficulty in figuring stuff out when you don't have the board. So it plays in, and that's one of the reasons why I think it got to be so popular. Even though, during this time, Rogue actually became, like, similarly popular. Not similarly popular, but similarly powerful, as in the difference between Mage and Paladin and Rogue like really kind of narrowed in, and Rogue hasn't really lost that edge in BRM either. So in BRM, Paladin and Rogue are kind of similar, but the impression's been made. And what's the impression? If I play Paladin, I can win, and if I play Paladin and there are all these high swing cards like Muster for Battle and Follow the Rules, then I get those cards, I can win. I can win 12 wins. And it's much more important if, let's say, you're like a 4-win player, a 5-win player, which is that's an above average player, by the way. If you can go hit 12 wins more often, that's more exciting than if you can like hit 8 wins more frequently, right? Like 8 wins is good, but you get really excited on those 12-win runs. And the Paladin lets you do that without needing you to like bump up your skill level, as opposed to the Rogue, which has so many cards, you have to play them in so many combinations, you have a hero power that kills you, it's like a kind of a mess to play. And so the perception of this like Mage Paladin is so good became a thing. And when more and more people see Mages and Paladins in the arena, they more and more assume that that's what you should do, and then they play them more and more. We have the stats. It's not that big of a difference between a Mage and a Rogue and a Paladin. It was even smaller in GVG. It's a little wider now. Somehow BRM helped the Mage, but the perception is really outpacing the reality here, I think.
I think so too. Now that we've talked so much about the strengths of these classes, let's talk about how you can
So the
put
takeaway
yourself in
from
a
that,
position to
guys,
beat
is
them.
play other classes. This is our secret campaign to get people that we see. You also realize the arena pool, especially when you get to higher win rates, it's kind of the same people. Like if you play a lot, you see the same names fairly frequently. They probably want to also match you with people you have good ping with or something. I don't know. But anyway, so guys, if we can reach some of you out there and you play more other classes that are not Mage and Paladin, be very good for the arena. We can all cooperate on this and we can all bring it home and create a better environment for everybody. Anyway, keep going on. You were talking about like these classes that everyone plays and we say like they're really good, that they have weaknesses or something.
I'm sorry, you're sounding like an after-school special. Anyways, you're out there saying, well, if everyone is playing Paladin and Mage, what should I be playing if I don't want to play Paladin and Mage? Let's focus on a couple of the weaknesses of these classes.
Oh, that's
They're
actually
incredibly
really good. Yeah, because if everyone's playing Paladin and Mage, and you play a class that counters them, not only will you be bringing diversity, which we all know is good, into the arena, but you'll also like get the advantage that all those other suckers are still playing these classes that are perceived to be better than they actually are. And we're not saying they're bad, but like, you know, the gap is small, right?
Look at these fools playing OP classes.
So are
Look at
any
them
of these
in the
classes
superior
warrior,
win
by the
rate.
way, that's good against paladins or mages?
What class? What are you talking
Warriors? You know?
Huh?
Warriors?
about? No, I don't think those exist. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was thinking of a different game.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's go on. Let's talk about Priest first. And I think Priest has a favorable match.
Okay. Sorry, guys. We are having technical difficulties. Well, this is not a good start to our first podcast. I'm going to try to get Merps back in here.
Hey there.
All right. Merps is back.
Sounds good. Had a little bit of a glitch. It's just because Blizzard doesn't want us revealing the secrets of how to beat Paladins and Mages, you know?
You see the timing, right? Like that was
It's so
uncanny.
uncanny.
We were
It's
actually
so
just about
obvious.
to tell you how to beat these classes. When we were talking about how great these classes were, nothing. No technical issues.
Anyways, Priest is always a good pick. It's a little bit draft dependent, but that's
Like
how
a good
you're
pick
going
against
to...
Mage or Paladin, both?
Both.
Huh?
I think it's a decent pick against both. I think it's a little bit stronger against Mage. Priest on turn 6, if you can hit with the Tempo Enforcer, a lot of the times that just nullifies their Flame Strike. Flame Strike is, as we talked about, the boogeyman, and Priest specializes in big, beefy minions. Mage does have a counter in Polymorph, but Priest, you can usually get a lot of big minions and keep on healing them over and over again. And in the late game, your heal 2 is a better hero power than their 1 ping. And you can always set it up to avoid Flame Strike. You can set it up to avoid having your 4-1 Yeti getting killed. It's a good matchups. It's a good matchup for the Priest. And I think Hunter is in a decent place, more so for Mage, just because the Hunter can just go really fast against the Mage. And the problem with the Mage is it has a lot of strengths and it really doesn't have too many weaknesses, but it's not fast enough if you just draft a fast Hunter. And with the Hunter, they'll get you down to like 10 HP, almost run out of cards, and just hero power you to death. And I've had a lot of games where I've been on the Hunter side. It's really great, but it's so frustrating being on the other side as a Mage. And
he's chasing you down, and you can't do anything. You're relying on, like as the Mage, you bank on taking some damage, right? You set up your Flame Strikes and do whatever, right? And if that's how you're playing the Mage, Hunter's your worst nightmare.
Yeah, definitely. So I think those two classes are pretty good.
Yeah.
Also, what about
we're
you?
We're also streaming this live on Twitch, by the way. This is all recorded live. The Lightforge will always be recorded live. And we're getting some... This is also good for feedback immediately. I think we need to move your mic a little over, Merps, so that it's less loud. We have this problem sometimes. Yeah, there we go.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's going to be much better. I think Priest is... So we were talking about the Hunter matchup, and we're not going to say that Hunter's counter Mage, right? Like if you're a Hunter, you're facing a Mage.
It's not counter against Mage.
We're not saying that the Hunter has the upper hand. We're saying that, well, now you're on a fairly even playing ground with a Mage, right? Remember the scary Mage that everyone uses because it's the best class ever? Well, the hunter, when you're facing a mage, is on the same level. You're not really at a disadvantage as a lot of other classes would be when facing mage, like that class that we can't quite remember. So with the paladins, we were talking about priest, and it's also bad against paladins. But more than that, the paladins have an issue with the large removal, right? They have an outdoor, they don't have anything else, and if you put big stuff down on the paladins and they can't clear it with 4 damage, which is the sword, the true silver champion, it's just not going to get cleared. That's a problem for the paladin. So what class has really big things? Well, it's priest for one, but also druid. Druid has really big things, lots of really big things, and they're taunts, so the paladin can't even go face. So that's a nightmare matchup for a paladin. Druids actually have the upper hand on the paladin when that matchup happens, which is like, think about one of the most popular classes, and if you can just have an upper hand against that class whenever you see them, that's huge. And also, mage is really good against paladins because you can ping all the divine shields off. And because you are, mage is just super powerful.
So is the ultimate lesson to just pick mage?
No. I know that's what the logical lesson would be, but let's stay away from logic and just go with like hunter, priest, druid, fun. Did we talk about warlock yet?
I love warlock. I think warlock.
We should talk about warlock. Why don't you talk a little bit about warlock? We have that written down somewhere.
Do you want to talk about how warlock is a pretty decent matchup against mage?
Okay, so warlock after the gang boss is actually, first of all, just a really good class. It's not quite paladin, mage, rogue in terms of win rates that we can observe, but people do very well with it. It is the 4th best class, so it's already like, if you want to go down for mage and paladin, and you don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to play a underpowered class, why would I do that? Warlock is not really underpowered, and it has a very good matchup against mage. Why? Because what happens when you get flame striked? You reload. They flame strike, he can't put anything else out on the board, you just put all your stuff out again, and you can keep tapping and getting more cards. Also, mage is kind of weak to like early rushes. Not a lot of people pick cards like mirror image, right, which is the 2/02 taunts that come out. And warlocks have that flame imp 1-drop, and they can generally go a bit fast and afford to do that by tapping. The mage does make it so that you're a little afraid of tapping later on because of the fireballs and all that, but you can still tap enough to like out card advantage the mage on a strictly card advantage kind of basis, and that's something other classes can't really do.
Yeah, sounds good. I think we broke down the 2 classes
You think
fairly
we've beaten
well.
this to death? This is something we had to do. We were like talking about like, how do we start the Lightforge? What would people want to know? And I think the first thing is, what is the arena meta? Why is it like this? How do we deal with this? And so this is kind of the big overall topic. Deep fried meta won't always be this long. I hope it won't be like 25 minutes.
It's really deep fried.
Yeah, and we're not done yet because we still need to talk about the Grand Tournament expansion. What do you
Sounds
think is
good.
going to happen with the Mage and the Paladin with the Grand Tournament expansion?
With the Paladin and the 3 cards that have come out so far, Warhorse Trainer, Tusker Jouster, and Argent Lance, between these 3 cards, I really only see Argent Lance having any sort of effect. Right now, the Paladin, on turn 2, what do they have in terms of direct removal? They have Seal of Light, and Argent Lance is a lot better than Seal of Light. It could just be a discounted Stormforge Axe, which Stormforge Axe is great in the arena. So that's very good, but I don't see Paladin changing that much. Warhorse Trainer is not a great card. And Tusker Jouster, the joust to restore 7 health to your hero, it won't matter a lot of the time.
Even that weapon that we talked about was so disrupting to the expectations of the Paladin's early game. That weapon's a rare. And the rare pool is expanding, and it's the Paladin. They have amazing rares anyway, follow the rule. I still don't know what that card's name is. Argent? It's not Argent.
I'm not going to help you this time. You're just going to have to struggle through it.
Rules and
Terrible.
muster for battle. It's not Argent. If it was Argent, my mind would have picked up. Aldor Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper. Who reads? I read.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So Paladin kind of stays the same. Maybe even gets I wouldn't say weaker, but it does dilute a lot of the cards that it's come to rely on. The Mage, on the other hand, just got so much more consistent. They have as their class cards this card that people are still going a little bit, I think, over the top over, which is Spellslinger, 3 mana, 3/4. Add 1 random spell to each player's hand, which is not good. You don't want random effects if you're a good player, but it's a 3/4, which is great, and it's a common. So mages now curve out better, and if you play a lot of Arena, you'll just quickly realize that there's not enough 3-drops. There has never been enough 3-drops. Blizzard has to add a lot of good 3-mana cards for there to be enough 3-drops in the Arena for you to like reasonably curve out. And so having a class card really helps with that. So that's why Priest and Warlock had such an advantage so far, because they have the 3-drops in their class commons, and so did Druid. But now Mage is joining them, so that's very important. And then Flame Lance is not a great card, but it's a hard removal. And as everyone else is, like, if you're a shaman, you have the best hard removal in the game, right? You have Hex. But you're not getting any more. Like, there's no indication that you're going to get any more hard removals, and your chances of being offered a Hex is just getting lower and lower and lower. And on the other hand, if you're a Mage, you have a Fireball, more or less of a hard removal, and you have a Polymorph, and now you're getting a Flame Lance. Like, you're going to still have a very solid train of hard removals being offered to you. Their other cards are also not bad, right? Fallen Hero, Effigy, Cauldron Drake. We won't go into it, but so these classes aren't going to be knocked off the throne anytime soon. But as we talked about before, the fact that they're on the throne, the fact that you see them so much, is a great reason to play some of these lesser played classes that counters the Mage and the Paladin.
Definitely. Hope to see some other classes on the in the Arena very soon.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to our second segment, because the first segment was, so this thing's only supposed to be 40 minutes. We may run over on the first time, and we'll try to keep it to 40 minutes less. Fine. So if you guys don't watch us in the videos that we do, we almost always run over. I'll start videos off saying, like, I want to keep this to be under 30 minutes, and then it's like an hour. But it's kind of a running joke at this point. But our next segment is Card Good Bad, where we tell you whether a card is good or bad.
Quality names.
In the Arena.
Quality names. Today, we're going to talk about the card Gnomish Experimenter.
So before we talk about Gnomish Experimenter, why are we talking about the Gnomish Experimenter?
Because we stream not as often as we would like, but we do stream. And during our streams, we get a lot of questions, especially during the drafting portion, where Gnomish Experimenter pops up. And inevitably in the chat, some people will say, I hate this card. Why would you ever draft it? It turns one of your minions into a useless chicken. I hate when my Ironbark / Sunwalker / Tyrion gets turned into a 1/1 chicken. Isn't it just card disadvantage?
And we say
Tyrion makes the best chicken.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like a human chicken, I guess.
A lot of
Anyways.
Go on.
I wouldn't know. But anyways, with Gnomish Experimenter, as you can see in the tier list, we have it rated at above or about an average card, and I think that's where it should be. So if you look at the card itself, 3 mana for a 3/2, that's not what you want for the stats of a card. That's basically, you're getting the body of a 2-drop for 3 mana. Now, a lot of people see the battle cry as card disadvantage, in which case, if you draw a minion, they think, I'm losing a minion to get a 1/1 chicken, which is, let's face it, not a great card.
And just to interrupt the thought and to clarify, we rated a 50, which is our number for the average card, but it's not the average card in your deck. The average card in your deck is a 64 because you get offered 3 cards, right? And you pick the highest one generally. But it is, in terms of, like, if you look at all the cards, including all the crappy cards like a Thrallmar Farseer, like, it is dead average is what we rated. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So the thing with Gnomish Experimenter is you have to realize the definition of card advantage only deals with cards in your hand. It's not called deck advantage for a reason. So this thing does give you deck disadvantage. But if you're talking about card advantage, which is all that matters, only the cards in your hand, the ones that you're able to play, matters. If you just pretend that the card that got turned into a chicken was at the very bottom of your deck, suddenly it doesn't seem that bad anymore, right? And the card that gets turned into a chicken, sometimes that's something you want to get turned into a chicken if you want to draw something bigger. So just pretend that that is the very last card in your deck that you were never going to draw anyways. And the only way that you get punished is if you go into fatigue and you needed that minion. That is the only time in which you actually get punished for Gnomish Experimenter. And also, unlike in ranked, there is no negative effect in letting your opponents know more information. In ranked, you can only have 2 cards per deck. So if you burn your, not burn, but chickenify your second Druid of the Claw.
Poultralize. There's an official Blizzard term for the process of turning anything into a chicken.
Anyways, if you poultralize your second Druid of the Claw after you've already played your first one, your opponent knows you have no more Druid of the Claws. If it happens in Arena, okay, you poultralize a good card, but you could still have 1 more Druid of the Claw. You could still have 5 more Druid of the Claws. Your opponent doesn't know anything, so you're actually giving 0 information to your opponent, which is a downside in ranked for this card, but not a downside in Arena.
Yeah, and another downside in ranked is that you screw up your combos, right? A lot of ranked decks are combo based, and you can remove a piece of your combo, it's very, very, very bad. Even if you would have drawn it at the end, maybe you had a way to, like, I don't know, get it out or something. Not a concern in the Arena. And so that whole speech that Merps just did, it's a speech because he said it before, because this is how frequently we get this question of why is the Gnomish Experimenter not the worst card ever. So I want to talk about not the card drawing portion, but the 3/2 body part. The 3/2 body used to, before GVG happened, it used to be a totally good 3-drop. You could drop a Bloodfen Raptor on turn 3 and feel good about your life. I mean, you don't feel great about your life, but you feel pretty good about your life, assuming your life is just the Hearthstone Arena, which is a fair assessment, I think. You are right now listening to well, we wanted it to be 40 minutes, but probably like an hour-long podcast about the Hearthstone Arena. So a 3/2 used to be very good, and you're kind of solid with it, because what were 3-drops? They either killed anything you would drop anyway. If they were like a Scarlet Crusader or a Harvest Golem, they would just trade up with anything. Or you would have a 3/3. But now we have all these 2/4s, and we have all like a 3/4. We just have things that make a 3/2 not quite as good as it used to be. So Gnomish Experimenter before GVG would have been an even greater card. And who knows what's going to happen with the meta after TGT. Maybe it'll be even better. Maybe the 3/2 body will actually become like very susceptible to being removed, in which case it would be a little worse. But for now, it's a 50, and it's one of our most controversial. I mean, it's not really controversial among Infinite players, but for most people, this is a controversial pick, and this is why we need to explain it a lot. And this also ties in with Fel Reaver, which kind of does the same thing on a bigger scale, right? The cards that you discard, you haven't really discarded them unless you have to draw to the end of your deck. So yeah, for Fel Reaver, you can actually be milled, and then you won't have any cards. But if your Fel Reaver takes like 9 cards off your deck, unless you actually run out of cards to draw, it doesn't matter which 9 cards it took.
Exactly.
All right, so let's go on to our next segment. Question from the GOAT. Question from the GOAT. If you had to pick one card from Hearthstone to play in real life whenever you want, which card would it be? So to clarify, this is a card you can play at any time, repeatedly. It's not like you throw the card out, like Gambit or something, and then it's done. You can keep playing it.
You could keep on playing this card. Okay, let me think. This is something I obviously should have done more prep for, but since we just talked about Gnomish Experimenter...
Hold on, let's not lie to them. We did like an hour prep on this one question. We could not come up with an answer, which makes this the best question. I should have done even more prep for this. Okay, hear me out. Is Gnomish Experimenter the worst card? Because you play it, you get a scientist who, can help you out with stuff, and you get a chicken with it. Well, hopefully you don't get a chicken.
Oh.
I don't know. Okay, let's be honest, okay? In your deck of life, how many minions do you have?
Well, no, is it pulling from my deck of life? I thought it would just be pulling from, like, a random deck. Is the deck mine? Like, is it going to turn my table into a chicken?
Gnomish Experimenter doesn't pull from a random deck. It pulls from your deck.
It's my deck. Oh, no, that's
Look
bad.
Around you. That's your deck. That's your deck in life.
That's terrible. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
right.
terrible.
You don't want to like. First of all, it's going to just bring you an item essentially, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
it's not going to turn anything into a chicken, except maybe your minions. Like if like I'm your minion, or if your girlfriend is your minion, then we'd be turned into chickens. Oh, you have chinchillas. They would definitely be turned into chickens, and chinchillas are better than chickens, so that would not be cool. But everything else, you would just like get it, like maybe like in your hand or something, like
Good.
your microphone, or like your desk, or your pillow.
Excellent. So what's your pick?
That was not a pick. You didn't even give your pick. Don't push this back on me.
All right, fine. All right, here. I'll have another one. I think this would be a good one. Mind vision.
So that you can see one random thought in
Yes.
in someone's life,
Yes.
and it
One
will be
random thought.
and then you will then have that thought in your head forever.
See, the second part makes it sound so
You don't know
cumbersome
what thought
and
you're pulling from.
burdensome.
This is a very optimistic view of human beings and your ability to tell who's
This is
screwed up inside and
Hearthstone.
who's
It's,
not.
you have like walruses riding on turtles,
Okay.
jousting.
But this is real life now. Remember, we're using the card in real life. I don't think you're understanding this concept. You're still trying to pull cards
This
from
is super
decks.
dark, then.
Yeah,
Like
it
super
would be.
dark.
If you would like mind vision something, like you thought this was a happy
Well, yeah,
person,
I'm picking
and it
mind
turns
vision,
out
not
that,
picking
like,
mind
he was touched by a
control.
priest when he was little, like that's in your head forever. You don't get that out until you play the card, whatever the hell that means. I don't think that's a good choice, man.
Oh,
Maybe it is, right? You
fine.
could use it on people that you love and care about, and then you really do want to know all their deepest, darkest secrets, right?
Okay. All right. So,
Or maybe
okay.
you
So
do,
all,
maybe you don't. I wouldn't, but that's just me.
so all these choices apparently are terrible.
You just haven't thought about it enough. Go back and think about it some more. The question from the goat's going to be the same question next time. We're not making a new question for the goat. The goat's going to have the same question because that was an unsatisfactory answer from Merps, and we don't have enough
I
time
thought
to
mind
keep-
vision would have been a good answer, and then you just turned it back on me and
I know,
twisted it.
because you didn't think hard enough about mind vision.
All right. What's your answer then?
My answer,
Give us
okay,
your answer.
okay. My answer is going to be one. Well, okay, so I have two answers. I haven't quite I haven't narrowed down which is going to be the best one. All right, but first, I think what would be really awesome is brawl. To at any time be able to say brawl, and then all the people, because it doesn't include you. You're a hero, right? You're not a minion, but all the minions will brawl, and then all of them just disappear. Because it's Hearthstone, we don't know
Like,
if anything
disappear,
dies.
you
They just
die.
disappear. Well, they may not.
No.
They just disappear from the game board.
No.
right?
Using your logic back at you now.
No, I don't
they
know if
die.
They die. You don't know that they die, right? And nowhere does it say does it say kill? It says destroy, right? I think assassinate says destroy. So
Okay,
a bunch
okay.
of people will get destroyed and no
Right,
longer
right.
be.
What
in
does
front
that
of me.
mean? What does it mean to destroy a person?
I don't know. I think it's ambiguous. I don't think Blizzard did a very good job, and I think
Oh my
Blizzard
God.
purposely avoided the word kill. Okay, so well, if everyone's going to die, maybe I don't brawl, right? Like maybe that's not the best thing.
Terrible.
Maybe in that case. Okay, so in that case, I would go with, and I'm only picking warrior cards because it's like the most mythical class that doesn't exist in the arena, and so I'm very attracted to its never seen cards. Commanding Shout.
Ooh.
We're broadcasters. We talk for a lot, and we like to talk. And Commanding Shout is basically like say a command, and then nothing that is aligned with you will be able to get destroyed. It could get hurt. It could get hurt until it's like barely hanging on, but nothing will get destroyed. It's the ultimate way to protect all the people closest to you. And then you draw a card.
Nope. I got my card.
What's your card?
Perfect. Hand of Protection. Boom. I don't even want Argent Protector. I don't want a guy to come and give me a Divine Shield and I have to like invite him to dinner or something. No, I just want Hand of Protection. Perfect. And I can like jump off the building and be absolutely fine, no matter what damage I take.
Well, hold on. If on the way down from the building,
I get nicked by a bird.
yeah, or like a rock or some debris, then you're still dead.
Terrible.
Yeah. That's why it's a hand of protection. That's why it's not invulnerability. That's why I like Commanding Shout. So I know that for the span of one
but
turn,
with
whatever
Commanding
that one
Shout,
turn
okay.
is.
No. Here's what happens with Commanding Shout and you jump off a building. You're going to be within an inch of life. So they'll be able to nurse you back to health, but you're
Okay,
going to break
but
all
the
your
point is, I'm
limbs.
not going to do it to like jump off a building. I don't have your objectives of how to use this card. It's more like, I live in New York City. I sometimes, I'm in Queens actually. I sometimes go to unsavory places. Maybe me and my buddies get approached and we're like, oh no, well now everyone's fine with 1 health. And although seriously, if I were a Hearthstone card, how much health would I have? 1 health. I think we can all agree,
Disgustingly low
1
amount.
health. So I'm okay with this. I think it has good synergy with my life.
All right. I think the
All
GOAT
right.
is pretty satisfied with
All
these
right,
answers.
all right. New question from the GOAT next time. Let's move on to Rogue Talk. So we're already over. We're just gonna keep going over. This will end when it ends.
Go.
And then we'll try to be better on time next time. This will be our longest.
Probably
You
not.
guys are witnessing the longest episode of the Lightforge ever, until Ben Brode himself comes on, and then we'll cut him off before this episode's length, just to preserve this episode as the longest one. Rogue Talk. Rogue Talk comes from. It's not like this is what the segment's name is. We're not going to keep talking about the Rogue every week. We do this thing. We got started by doing something called the Arena Coop, which is Merps and I playing 1 game of the Arena every Sunday. These days we do it after recording the Lightforge. We're about to do it right after this, so it should have started like now, but it's not going to start for a while. But it's around like 7:15, maybe 7:30 New York time. Every Sunday. Come check us out on Twitch, if ADWCTA, if you want. But we do a random class each time. We have a whole account set up, and we pick the class that we had last not played, like the most least played class from before, and so we don't really get to pick the class. And this time, it's an account we don't use for anything else either. So this time it came out to be the Rogue. So we're going to play a Rogue run next, and this is going to be a segment where we kind of talk about the class and what we think the class is doing right now. So Merps, how do you like the Rogue right now? We talked a little about the Rogue already, so we can probably be quick about this.
We talked a little bit about it. Extremely strong class. I think we both agree that it's the number 3 class behind Paladin and Mage right now. The reason the Rogue class
I think it's
is so
better
strong.
than Paladin.
Well,
Bomb
that's
dropped.
fine. Rogue is extremely powerful because of the amount of tempo that it can put out in the early game. And let's just be clear, right now we are in a tempo-heavy meta. Arena is all about tempo. Back in Classic, a lot of it was about value, card advantage. Now you want to have a strong board presence from the start of the game, be able to initiate trades, and that's exactly what the Rogue can do. The Rogue hero power is by far the strongest hero power in the early game. Not only does it give you 2 pings, it sticks on the board, which is really important. For something like a Mage or a Druid, your ping, you can't keep it until the next turn. Rogues, you can. Cards like Backstab, Defias Ringleader, Eviscerate, extremely efficient for mana. You get a lot of stats with the Defias Ringleader if you combo it out. For Eviscerate, 4 damage for 2 mana is fantastic. Also, 4 damage is a break point that you always want to hit. And Backstab, being able to kind of just kill off some people's 2-drops for free. Not for free, but it's a card for card, but you save 2 mana. Yeah, free tempo. No 2 mana at the beginning is so big.
Yeah.
So just being able.
Yeah, and the way to play the Rogue is not like, you may think, oh, so much tempo, let's put all the tempo out. But like, Defias aside, that's not really the way to play to play a Rogue. What you do is you put your weapon out, because that's what gets you the tempo and the cards. And then afterwards, you pick a turn, maybe turn 3, maybe turn 4, maybe turn 5, and instead of playing 1 card, you play like 2, 3 cards, and then you have the board, you have the tempo, you even have card advantage because of your hero power. And especially if you have an auto barber or something, that you'll definitely get card advantage, and you kind of like establish the board, and they have to try to get you off the board. So we do talk a lot about tempo, and that is kind of the trademark of the Rogue, but it's not like tempo on turn 1, right? That's the trademark of the Warlock. The trademark of the Rogue is throw a lot of cards out for tempo at some point in the early-ish mid-game.
Yeah.
And of course, it should also be mentioned that Rogue can play slow. They do have Sprint. It's a super tricky card, because you're like monitoring the Rogue. You're like, all right, he's about to be done. And then Sprint, he loses a bunch of tempo, but he's back the next turn with more cards. And in the end game, if you don't have cards, then you will slowly lose your tempo anyway, right? If you have 10 mana, you play 4 of them. That's not good. So yeah, you lose 7 right off the bat, but then you get 4 cards, which means you'll have full 10 mana's worth of tempo for like a number of turns afterwards, and you'll be able to get it all back. So even tempo-wise, it's only bad for 1 turn. You just need that 1 turn to play it. And with TGT coming up, maybe the slower rogue gets even better. Our philosophy with Hearth Arena is always that any class can be played anyway, because we think that's Blizzard's philosophy, and we think that they more or less succeed with it in the arena. So I'm totally okay with a slow rogue. Probably, I rarely pick sprint these days, but still, whenever I do pick sprint, a shockingly high percentage of my runs end in 12 wins with that card, because it's so unexpected. And I would only pick it when I have the other like system, like the deck to kind of back up a sprint. So when the new card that I've kind of alluding to is a panda, and it's like the best panda, because the other pandas are like they have to remove tempo, right? In a tempo heavy meta, you don't want to remove tempo off your board for card advantage, which is what the other pandas, the Brewmasters, do. But this is the Shadow Pan Cavalry, which is 5 mana. It's a common card, so 5 mana rogue card. Whoa, right? And it's a 3/7, which is not good for 5 mana, but also not horrible. Like, think about how okay a 4/6 for 5 mana is with like a Spiteful Smith, even if you don't have a weapon. 3/7 is not going to be like a little worse, but it's not like game-changingly bad. And there's a combo effect where it gets 3 attack to become a Boulder Fist Ogre. Probably not going to play it on turn 5, but Rogue has Backstab. You could coin it out on turn 4, or you can just play it later on in the game and use 5 mana to get a little bit more tempo later. So it's gonna shake up the Rogue meta. It's obviously a very good card, but it doesn't quite fit into what the Rogue is doing, like what the Rogue does best right now. And I like that. I like the diversity.
Yeah, you were talking previously in one of your video reviews how there's this convergence of classes coming together, right? And we're not there yet. It's still very far ahead, but you see classes kind of intruding on each other's spaces just a little bit. And with rogues having just a big, beefy minion, that's not typically a very rogue thing to do. Burgle, which is just like a thought steal, that once again, that's intruding on other classes just a little bit. Now, is a rogue still going to play like a rogue? Of course. It just has these 2 little wrinkles thrown in there, and which is good, which is healthy. But we're getting there. We're kind of having this slight overlap, which I think can really make things interesting.
Yeah, totally agree. And we're not going to talk about Poison Blade because it's an epic card and it sucks.
Terrible.
You won't pick it, so it won't affect the meta. It's a great part about the arena. Yeah, you get to see all the cards, but a lot of cards just won't really affect the meta. All right, moving on to our final segment, and we can end the show after this. Thank you guys for staying with us. So if you guys don't know anything about Twitch and you're listening to this on a podcast, Twitch is well, first of all, if you play Hearthstone and you don't know about Twitch, where have you been hiding? Twitch is a live streaming program. It's a website, and it allows you to live stream things like videos in real time, and people use it to play video games mostly, so that people can see what kind of video games you're playing, what moves you're making, and all that. So the Lightforge, our format is that we record live on Twitch. So we actually have an audience when we're doing this, and the audience is right now 400 people who are watching us live and commenting on a chat, which we're also reading, but we can't really address it because it's a podcast first. We'll talk to them afterwards, but that's the format, and so it's where we're running a little long today. So thank you everybody for sticking around. And if you're listening to this on a podcast and you're wondering, wow, this is like over an hour. Why do I want to listen to people drone on about the arena for over an hour? One, you should want to do that because arena's super cool and super awesome, and we're super interesting talking about the arena. Merps is making a weird face at that. But two, it will not be this long in the future. It will be a bit shorter than that. We're really trying to keep it at 40 minutes. If we fail at that a little too often, it'll still be under an hour. Okay, so the last segment is we just want to address this question because we get asked it a lot, which is about the Grand Tournament expansion coming out and how it changes the rewards in Ranked, and it changes the rewards in Arena. In Ranked, you now get I think even at rank 20, you get 1 golden card and you get a little bit of dust. But if you get to rank 5, you get 3 golden cards and you get more dust. And if you get to legendary or rank 1 or whatever, you get even more dust. You don't get any more golden cards. And the arena system has changed that the pack that you get is no longer the most recent large expansion. So it used to be always GVG, right? It won't be the Grand Tournament now. Some people are like, oh, Blizzard, money-making scheme. You won't let people get TGT packs from the arena anymore, but instead now it's going to be random. So you have a third chance of getting Classic, a third TGT, and a third the Grand Tournament. So how do you think that is going to affect things? Because even changes like this will affect the meta. So first, do you like it or not, why, and then how it'll affect the meta?
Yeah, I don't like it so much for the arena changes, mostly because I think for most veterans of the arena, the fact that you're getting random packs won't be as good, at least for the start of TGT. I don't play Constructed at all, but I still like to collect cards because I like Hearthstone in general. And in the beginning, when I'm playing,
when you open the cards and you get to hover over stuff.
I get to hover.
Hover.
Those.
If you guys don't know the hover trick, if you hover over it, the color that glows is the rarity.
Those 5 seconds of anxiety. But at the start of TGT, after I complete an arena, I only have a third of a chance to get the pack that I want, which is the TGT pack, because I have most of the other cards. And that kind of stinks, just because I want new cards as soon as possible. And it could be better for newish players, I guess, because they have a chance of getting classical packs, in which if you're a newcomer, you're probably going to want classic packs. And even if you don't get a classic pack, you're just going to get a pack period, and you're usually pretty happy with whatever you get. So I think it is kind of bad for veteran arena players, the arena awards, but it could be fine. I don't think you care so much if you're just beginning.
Yeah, I agree. You don't care so much when you're beginning. So on the good part side, what this means is arena will have more noobs and we'll have less veterans. So that's a softer meta. On the other hand, the people who are kind of in that veteran category may be the players you actually want to face. Because I always have this thing where I hate facing noobs. Not because it's less fun, but more because if they're at 5-1 and they don't know how to play the game, that means their deck is ridiculous. You're going to see Tyrians, they're not going to turn into chickens. It's just not going to be a fun time for you being on the opposite side of that. But if you see 5-1 and you get Hafu on the other side, for example, well, I'm a lot less afraid.
Of the deck.
Of the deck, right? I'm going to have a nice, engaging game with a top player, and that's fine. So there's a scale on there, right? Where you kind of want people to be just one level below you, right? Where you can outplay them, but that they can get to any record that you can get to with fairly average decks. Those are the people that I love to play against, and I think I have a very disproportionate high win percentage against those people, which I think are most good players. And I don't mean that to be tooting my own horn. That's just you're always going to be good against the people who are slightly worse than you, but by a measurable amount. And those people are the people actually, sadly, most likely if they play both arena and constructed, most likely to go to the arena constructed because of this reward change system. So I did the math out in case you guys are wondering.
You did math?
I did math. It's not accurate, but I did the math for just if you are an infinite arena player, right? That means if you can continuously play arena without having to purchase packs. Getting to all of the awards, all of the rewards added together, including the gold that you get for playing ranked, as opposed to your margin in playing the arena, it will be worth it for you to play ranked if your win rate is, and if it takes the same amount of time, right? I'm trying to find a good way to phrase this. Clearly not scripted. For me, and I have about 7.5 wins per run in the arena, it would take 10 to 20 arena runs on average to get the same amount of rewards as making it to rank 5 in the new rank system. the amount of games it takes to reach to reach rank 5 or to reach legend. It takes usually double the amount of time to reach legend than it does to take to reach rank 5 in terms of number of games. So it would be 10 arena runs to reach rank 5, and it would be 20 arena runs to reach legend. And what that means is, time-wise, is it going to take me less time to reach rank 5 or less time to play 10 arena runs? And the answer for me is obviously 10 arena runs, because it takes like 150 games to like reach rank 5 usually if you're winning at 60%. So for someone like me, it's definitely not worth it. But those numbers skew as your win rate goes lower, and somewhere around 6.5, and I think they did it on purpose, because in my mind 6.5 is the infinite marker. That's when it becomes more worth it for you to play ranked, if all you care about is getting rewards. So just so if you guys are wondering whether you, like, pure rewards wise, whether you should play ranked or if you should play arena, if you're an infinite player, you should still play arena. If you're a non-infinite player, ranked will give you more rewards. And we don't like that, because what that means is the arena pool is going to be even less. And this is following the Blizzard pattern of marginalizing the arena, which we're not a fan of. But for the short time, especially if you're more like an average player or a casual player, your competition may be lighter. And if you're a new player, the arena is a great way to familiarize yourself with all the new cards, and you will actually want all the decks. Any more to say about the new reward system?
No, I'm just looking forward to everything that TGT has to offer. Just really excited about the new cards. As for a new reward system, I just want to play it, man. And I think a lot of people feel the same way.
It's true. I broke it down really technically because people ask, but really, it's whatever you have more fun playing, right? And if you're listening to the 61st minute of a podcast about the arena in Hearthstone, you like the arena. So keep playing the arena. And start playing classes that's not a Mage or Paladin. Next week, we're wrapping this up. Next week, we're going to do more of the same, but in a shorter time frame. If we find this to be a pattern, maybe our new length is going to be 55 minutes and not 40, as for like our target length. But we'll see. We're still targeting 40. We'll see if that happens next time. We will have a new question from the GOAT. We will have a new class to talk about, and we don't even know what class that's going to be, because that class is going to be determined at the end of this run we're about to do on Twitch. But we do know what card we're going to talk about in Card Good Bad. And the card we're going to talk about is Gang Up. That is a card that we rate very low. It's one of the lowest rated cards in the entire game for us. And then a lot of people say that it's actually, maybe not good, but certainly nowhere near that bad. And so we'll discuss that in Card Good Bad. And we'll have more thoughts, complicated, deep thoughts in Deep Fried Meta. Oh, that's why we call it Deep Fried Meta, because our thoughts are deep about the meta.
I don't think that's why. But we could pretend.
Well, let's pretend. It makes us sound like we know what we're doing. All right. So see you guys on the next Lightforge. And if you're listening to us for the first time on the podcast, you have no idea who we are. It's ADWCTA and MERPS. And we do everything arena related. And we're developers of the Hearth Arena algorithm, which is on heartharena.com. So type ADWCTA into your Google browser, and you will find any kind of content that you may want arena Hearthstone related, and we'll be there providing it for you. And if you want to have a drafting assistant and have never heard of Hearth Arena or never used Hearth Arena, we encourage you to try it. Even if you don't go with its suggestions, it's really good to get a second opinion, and we tell you exactly why we think the cards are selected or are rated where they are, and we automatically tell you combos and things like that. And so that's our show, I guess.
Perfect ending. Thank you guys so much.
A very confused show.
This was a great time for us. See you guys next week.
See you guys next week.